Welcome to Intelligence Modifier. Today we've got me, John, we've got Clint, Ted, and today's topic is trust and how we feel it affects the dynamics at our table and maybe a little bit how we build it between each other and the players. Why don't you go ahead and start us off, Ted?
Oh, okay.
I thought he was gonna say my name first. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's like, who's gonna be? So trust. So our big prompt is like, how do you build trust and rapport with your new group versus an established group? Like the big thing. And do you like players to build it in real life outside of the game, stuff like that? And I'm very much in a yes, because if you cannot trust who you're gaming with, it's kind of it gets bad really quick. Like there have been moments like I was starting up a game with at Clint's house. We're starting up a new game for Tomb of Annihilation, and Nicole brought a friend that I knew, and I was like, oh, he's a pretty cool guy. I knew him.
I was meeting him for the first time.
Yeah. And then he started talking about the kind of characters he likes to build because what he likes to do in campaigns. And like immediately afterwards, it was pretty much like Clint and I going, no,
yeah, no,
like I explicitly said like I don't trust him to not screw up the game. I'm already having reservations about some players, but it was like him definitely no, because of what he talked about, how he likes to break the games on purpose to make the DM think on his feet. And I'm sitting there going, no, because I'm getting tired. At that point, I was really tired of those kind of players because I already had another group of players who would do that to me.
Yeah, that was for that context. He was a very heavy, hardcore power gamer. Like he specifically built characters to just break the game, and that's not fun for anybody.
But I mean, that's why a session zero is so important, you know.
Which is what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how I like to do build trust is, as we just mentioned, session zero. It is the godsend of everything that has ever been defined and created. And it sets it up that you're able to have the party, if they're all brand new, meet each other. And in fact, I'm doing that right now for an online game. I got people across the country and the world wanting to play in this game. And I've already established, once we figure out kind of a time frame, we're going to do a session zero. I'm going to walk everyone through Roll20, and then I'm going to throw them, be like, who owns Among Us? We're going to play some games and just have some fun getting to know each other. Because we're entering a gothic horror game, and with horror, you definitely want to have a trust buildup because it's one of those things of like I'm going to pick up and be like, hey, you guys have any like triggers or anything you do not want to see in game and stuff like that, and have them noted down and if they're in the game, remove them, because you don't want to accidentally have someone really hate what's going on. And a lot of different RPGs I started putting in like, here's how you do this kind of stuff. Call of Cthulhu did it with Harlem Unbound, which is Lovecraft set in Harlem. They have an entire chapter dedicated to how not to do racist stereotypes and be racist as a DM, because it's in Harlem. And I'm like, that's a good chapter to have.
Yeah.
Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft did the exact same thing with the descriptions of a bunch of the different horror types and like some things what not to do. But they also have an entire section dedicated to talk to your players. The goal is to scare them, not to traumatize them. Of thing, because that can break trust. And if once you lose trust, the game's no longer fun for anybody at that point. It's just not good and fun. And I unfortunately learned that too late with some old friends that are no longer friends because of me being stupid when I was younger. But you learn. That's what you gotta do.
You know, another point on that horror note with the trust, you know, it's great if you can trust the players and the players can trust you, because I think a horror game can be so much better when you can trust your players to really play into it as well. And it kind of goes, you know, you're not going to terrify them, but they're also going to give you back, you know, honest reactions and, you know, become better friends with you because you guys trust each other. And, you know, maybe you're not playing to make friends, but even still, comradeship is still very important for that as well.
And that's
Session zero is just as to add on to it. I think are really good for when you have not just like just new players in general, but like new to a whole system. Like I'm honestly I am toying with the idea, guys, to actually run an Exalted game after the D&D session, and I know I'm going to have to basically I'm gonna have to basically give like an Exalted 101 course on the setting. Like I'm going to have to fully explain it to everybody and kind of remind you, Ted, like what the actual setting is and what's all been going on. And that's another thing. And I have an actual story about building trust and stuff, of coming up with an idea. So at one point I was watching a whole bunch of Criminal Minds, and I had just gotten the Witcher role-playing game book, which is a dark fantasy, and I had an idea for an adventure of basically there's a Noon Wraith, and the Noon Wraith is basically when a woman is like brutally like life ended and all that jazz. So I was going to be like, oh, find the whole point is for the little group to go find what like to basically to stop the Noon Wraith. The villagers don't care why the Noon Wraith existed. What you find out is that it was a woman from the village and a elven woman. And if you don't know The Witcher, no one likes elves and the elves don't like humans. It's like a whole thing. Were in love and meeting outside. It was a whole secret affair. The villager men found out, and they like went all Criminal Minds on this lady, and she died in a very violent way and became a Noon Wraith because of that. I mentioned it to a friend of Ted and I, Riley, and they were just like, not for me. And I'm like, okay, understandable, because it was, you know, an assault kind of thing. I was never very detailed about it. It was just one of those, this is what you found. And so hoping that the end point of this would be that you, the party, would then go and be like, hey, you guys, what the hell? Be all pissed. And the villagers would not care. They'd be more mad that these people ended up making a Noon Wraith and it was their fault than what they actually did to another living person. So it was one of those like, this stuff is dark, like, but for Riley, it was too dark. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I understand that. I wasn't mad. I wasn't annoyed. You know, that wasn't the story to tell for them. And I knew if I ever did anything, I'd have to like curtail it back, or, you know, make sure I never cross that never tell that story with them in the party, and, you know, keep those types of elements out of it as much as I can, which is going to lead me into another thought. And I've heard this on videos, is like a red card, yellow card kind of system. If you're with players, because sometimes it's really hard not to like delve into those directions, and sometimes you miss, as you're kind of in the flow of role play, you kind of go into maybe some things that are kind of like you know, descriptors. Like some people have like, they're grossed out by certain things, let's say like getting stabbed in the eye or whatever. That grosses them out, and it might be one of those, some people might just forget about it, and it's like, whoa, hey guys, yellow card, remember, let's pull it back, let's bring it back, or red card completely in kind of thing.
I know we've used that before in a couple of games. We actually had that system implemented before in a campaign we were both in, Clint. It never got used.
It never got used. It never got used.
But we did have it implemented in, and that was one thing that because this is when Emil was still up here, and they were very thankful for something like that, because it's like, oh, it's like, thank you, that was a good system to have, and they started using it in their games. And also a fun thing, like with the Witcher stuff, like after reading the novels. I've
only read the first book, but I bought the next 3, so I'm going to actually read the rest of the Witcher series.
Like you definitely get a viewpoint of like how they look at non-humans. It's the way they describe it in the role-playing game, and kind of showing the series. The series shows, oh, we don't like non-humans, but nothing like that. And the books kind of go into like a bit more of like, hey, here's like, hey, yeah, we don't like them, but it's all like super murderous to them kind of moments, except unless there's like an active like fight going on. And I was like, oh yeah, that does make a lot of sense, because after reading like the roleplay thing, when it's like, oh yeah, no one likes elves, you know, people are like almost like elves are KOS. I'm just like, dwarves
aren't trusted.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I read the books. I've watched the stuff for the game. None of this is like a thing. Did the game just decide to go like full on, like just go into this kind of stuff and bring like a bunch of real world racism type of things into this and everything? Because I was like, that's a bit much. It's a bit
Well,
much, but this is very
basically
entertaining.
a lot of things when the humans originally came to that land, the elves lost their abilities of
Yeah.
magic, and basically it's like any other fantasy thing in the general of the humans all hate non-humans, but all the non-humans also hate humans, basically because we're like a virus that just can breed so fast and we live such short lives that we're just like this tide that can just overrun them and we don't care, so we'll just destroy everything. And basically it's a lot of things that like Nilfgaard used the elves, lied to them, then butchered a lot of them. So there's been some things that have happened to the elves, like even in the actual books, the stuff like that has happened.
Also, that's also like the few role playing system that's very much like, hey, we're gonna actually go into this kind of these kind of like super dark storylines that involve like actual like racial style hatreds and stuff like that. I know well, Cthulhu and Eldritch horror, the genre itself has kind of that same thing, which could also be like a trust thing. Because it's like in Veterans Guide for 5th edition, it specifically says under Eldritch horror, it is very easy to use racial stereotypes to set them up as the other. Don't do it. Simple 2 sentences. Like, resist doing that.
You have enough stuff in the D&D setting to set as the other, like actual literal faceless monsters to set as the quote-unquote other. You don't need to do that to normal people. You have literal demons like to set as your actual bad people.
Yep. I guess to bring it back around from The Witcher a little bit.
Sorry. It's a really good example that I own, so I only own that one that's a really dark fantasy.
I kind of wanted to touch on the idea of building trust as characters in like a party. And do you guys kind of feel that that's important to your like dynamic when you're playing, or is it like kind of something more dependent on your game system or your group even, where, you know, if we're all meeting together for a one shot, who cares that much about the party backstory? Oh, that's Jeff's character, and that's, you know, Christian's Ranger's dog. Like, I don't care. But it's a whole campaign.
I say yeah, it depends on if you're in if you're in like a one shot and you're just playing a game to just like, look, it's just numbers, we're just playing a strategy game to get to the final boss and make it at 0 HP and we win the day. Like, then really, yeah, you can kind of throw out any sort of like red light, green light stuff because it's just a hack and slashy dungeon thing. But like for a longer run campaign, yeah, there needs to be trust between players. Like, I need to understand that if I have something that I'm like, it's a no-go for me, that Ted isn't gonna like pull crap, like isn't gonna like assault somebody in front of me if I have like, you know, to do things like that, or even taking away the choices of like my character by doing stuff to me.
Yeah, if it's a one shot, I'll still be like, don't do shady stuff because that just sounds fun. Like, that just not fun for the group. Which is one reason why I like how organized play stuff is, which even says like, hey, don't do things that are going to sabotage the party. Like, you're part of the party, don't do that.
You're not even allowed to attack other party members. In organized play, it's even a rule. You can't play evil characters and you can't even attack other players unless you become confused and like literally you've like been hit with like confusion in 5th edition in Pathfinder and actually like punching someone else. You can't actively attack.
I think my favorite thing I saw was watching some videos on D&D TikTok, and which is just the thing for TikTok. It's just a subset of like for like role-playing games. For those who don't know, and someone sat there and went, this was the best conversation they ever saw in a game they were running. And it's Rudy Rogue in the corner. Party goes and introduces, asks Rogue, do you want to join? And the Rogue's like, nah, I work alone. I'm good. And the guys just go, sure, fine, and leave and go do the adventure. And the guy had to make a whole new character after he had just finished making that Rogue. And the player's like, aren't you guys going to try and convince me? And one of the players goes, no, because it's a stupid thing to keep doing every single time with new characters. I work alone. I'm broody. Ugh. It's
It
like,
is such a
no, we're done with this. Like,
stereotype. That's so stupid. That's such a silly stereotype to do.
it's one of the most overused stereotypes that also then doesn't set up a trust thing for the party. Like, it's kind of like when someone goes, "Oh, I'm building a cleric, but I'm going to charge you money every time I have to cast a healing spell."
Oh God.
And I've had players do that before, and I had their god strip from all their powers with the first time they did that, and they were then utterly useless because it was like, no, you're going to be this stupid. I'm just going to. Here's the consequence.
So I guess for that broody rogue, you kind of got to leave that stuff like you could be like, I'm broody, I work alone, but this time I'll try it out with you guys. And maybe his personality is that way and everything, but you got to work with the people who's sitting next to you still, like
you could
don't be
easily
ridiculous.
you could easily integrate that type of character if your hook was bringing a bunch of people together and being like, look, we need, but at first I'm like all like, well, I normally work alone, but of course for this I guess I have to work with a group, and then you're standoffish for a while and then you slowly build ties and you actually care about the group. It's like in the Fast and the Furious freaking movies, they do that.
It's everything.
It's like, well, the best part is it's that kind of stuff that's perfect, and that's why I like things like with it's kind of like I love like Ravenloft as a setting for this kind of stuff, because you literally have a world setting that is, you don't trust new people. It's just a thing. Anyone could be anything. It's hard to trust. And setting up, and actually most Gothic horror games, like even Call of Cthulhu, Dune, all these games are perfect like this kind of thing. Even Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game is the same kind of way. You might not know if this person's working with the bad guys or is a secret cultist or something like that, or a chaos worshiper, but know something, right now, we all need to kind of work together, and you just build bonds, and you go from there. Or you'll get really drunk and swear out to help a slayer. One of the two things. And it's a great way for like in-game building trust. Of like, oh hey, we're all kind of on together. We have to do this thing now. Let's do it. We got to get it done. Let's do this. And you just keep doing it. Like, so like if you play that broody loner type rogue, well, you're working with a group right now. I got a player like that in my Curse of Strahd game who literally set his character up as, yeah, he's the broody loner type rogue because that's the operative style he is in the Zentarum. That's what he does. But he also knows how to work with people because he's in the Zentarum.
Maybe he's like amusingly bad at trusting people, but like as a player, you kind of play it off, and your character maybe is a little silly when it comes to that, and that could be a really cool character. I'd love to play with that.
Yeah, I've played the I don't trust people rogue, but I've also sat there and in game noted when people were nice to me, like as players and stuff like that. And then in game, those are the ones I was like actively working to protect and help out. And my DM at the time noticed me, went, "Hey, that's actually a really cool way to work with that like loner type character. It's like you're building these trust bonds. It knows people are nice." And I went, they're doing nice. And then as we just kept on going and everything like that, it was just really, it was just a fun way of doing that kind of thing and building some good trust bonds. And
I think honestly, anyone you play with, this is my opinion, that anybody you're playing in any sort of role-playing game, I honestly think you should be able to become friends in the real world. You should be able to play 8 hours of D&D and then happily go to a freaking Denny's or your equivalent of a breakfast type diner and go hang out for 2 more hours and talk about whatever the crap you want. Like, you should still want to go and do stuff, happily hang out outside the game because you trust the person to not be a D-bag. So, it's not just like at the table, it's like, all right, bye, and then we never talk to each other. We all hang out still and go do stuff. I mean, not right now, but...
Yeah, like the three of us, we're all really good friends. We'll talk randomly for like hours about the most randomest of things.
Yeah, it's really hard to record these things when we won't shut up. And I can't push the play button.
We're like, oh no.
It's true. Like, for example, the start of today's batch recordings, we started at 6 p.m. our time. We started recording
like 7.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
At 7, because we were talking and just kind of catching up and just kind of having fun. Because like I'm about to go under a new lock quarantine because of medical issues and stuff like that. So it kind of threw our hey, we're all more vaccinated. We can get together and play in person again. And it's like I can't till
Yeah.
December, folks.
It gets to be an iPad.
Yeah, but so actually that kind of brings to like the bottom, like the final part of like the question of like for trust, like what happens if someone breaks that trust. And I've had it happen in a game. I've had players be like, my character does this, and then the group just kind of shuns them in person because they're done with that kind of crap. I've had someone come in that was like, actually had someone come in that was well known to 3 or 4 players, and we all thought he was a good guy and he was cool. Within 2 to 3 game sessions, he had hit on all 3 femme players at the table. He had made everyone uncomfortable to the point where no one was talking about it. No one was talking about it because they were worried I was going to like take his side or something. I found out from one of my other friends, like, oh hey, we all have an issue with this guy because of these things, and I was like, I was picking up on some of that, and I was going to talk to people about it before he showed up because he always showed up like right before game, so I have like 20 minutes with most of the party beforehand. And I got told that, and I removed him. I was like, no, man, you've broken the party trust. We can't have you anymore. I've also been the one to break a party's trust, primarily because of how all the players were about to treat me in game. We're playing a Warhammer, the 40k RPG, where you're playing all chaos guys. And the entire group, without me there, decided we're all good. They're all going to go Slanesh and Zeech for choosing. And I was like, I'm going to go Nurgle because it's actually kind of cool for some of the stuff you can do. And I told them, I'm thinking of doing this. And they all went, no, you can't do that. Sorry. You have to go one of these 2. We all decided this without you. The DM was like, are you going to do it? And I went, no, I'm going to go Nurgle. Here's what I'm going to do. And your campaign's going to end in 5 minutes. And he was like, I can't wait to see, because that was kind of shitty for what they did. The way I built it was, game started, I gave everyone's Nurgle's rot, and then got them all possessed by a plague bearer within 5 minutes of the game starting, and I was in control of all of them at that point.
I think one of the potential ways to avoid pitfalls like that too, though, is just talk to your group. Like, don't make big decisions. And as a DM, they should have been like, you guys got to wait till we can all talk about this. You can't just drill down and be like, haha, we're pigeonholing.
I guess he tried. That was the, like, I guess he was trying really hard to get them like, hey, I know Theo wants to do this with the character thing, so we shouldn't just stick it to these 2 gods, because we should like make sure everyone can be like all the gods, not just these 2. And they're like, no, we like these 2 gods only, blah blah blah. And the person knew, because I was trying to like find ways to get to deal with my psoriasis kind of starting at that point. It was like it was starting up, and so doing Nurgle stuff was my way of like dealing with it because of the plague and stuff. I told them that, like, this is why I'm doing it. It's because it's my way of dealing with this issue. Yeah, trust is definitely, I think it's the number one thing a gaming group does need to kind of like function.
And then dealing with broken trust, it really depends on like how they broke trust, to what degree. Was this like a first offense kind of thing? That's really just depends on how you feel at your table. Like, honestly, if someone like not accidentally, but really like, towed over a line of a very mildish thing, it's like, dude, stop, but then they kept doing it, and then they took one whole big old step across the line, and you're like, all right, now we're done. But then there's certain things like full on dropping, like, like racial slurs and stuff. Like, nope, there's no coming back from that.
Pretty bad.
There's definitely like, it really depends on like how your group feels, and you got to talk to the ones that were affected by it and really what their opinion is. So those that were harmed by whatever happened, it's really up to them. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say on this topic? We talked for a good while on this one.
Well, it's a big topic. I think I have a hunch throughout this RPGaDay stuff. we're going to come across several long topics.
Oh
Because
yeah, and I'm
that's the
fine with
point.
it. I'm completely fine if we talked for a while. I didn't know if we've kind of. I always try to make sure we don't like just kind of start circling and chasing our own tail and just repeating
Oh,
points.
I think I think that's why I'll because if you notice if I'm looking away I'm looking at my second screen and kind of like the questions and kind of like going through like the different stuff. So it's like okay cool here's what we got to like trust and broken trust now. It's like the tail end of the whole thing. But yeah, like with a broken trust and resolutions. I've held session zeros mid campaign to deal with that kind of stuff too. Like people do something very much like that, and the players go, "Hey, we're kind of uncomfortable now about stuff. I'll hold a session zero so we can get a lot. We can go clear it out and see if anything can be done. If the person who did the offending, I'll go, we can't fix it. Sorry, you're
Sometimes
gone."
they don't even know they did it too, and that's why talking and trusting each other is important. Because
Especially when it's like especially when it's like among a group of friends. Like I've had to leave groups. I left actually a group I ran for a very long time. I left it a couple of years ago, 3 years ago actually, after pretty much realizing I wasn't like I perceived I just wasn't as valued as a part as a person in the group that everyone else was, and that kind of all came to a head when it was just like I'm literally showing up here on these days and just not talking. I'm not having fun anymore. But I was another DM so that the other people who were DMing could take breaks because they worked full time and I really didn't. I was like, okay. I actually have one of the players, like one of the people go, "Oh, I wish you put this much effort into when you were running games for us, like you're doing now for games." And I was like, "Well, we all learn, and you guys were all kind of heads anyway." So
Yeah.
I stopped caring about trying to run nice things for you guys.
Now you don't even run games for them anymore.
I don't run games. I don't even invite the couple people I do talk to out of that group to anything because I don't want them in my games anymore. That's just how it is. Well, friends, just no.
trust.
I don't want to role play with it. I don't want to role play.
So any final thoughts?
Don't be a dick.
There you go. We're gonna end it on that note, which is the easiest thing to just say. Don't be a dick. So like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and we will see you tomorrow for the next RPG a day prompt, which depends. We'll feel which one we're gonna do.